Welcome to Sober Talk. I'm Dennis and I have lived experience of alcohol. If you or anyone you know is struggling with alcohol, please call Alcoholics Anonymous on 1300 222222 or check out their website on aa.org.au. I'll just run through the preamble of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other. They must solve their common problems and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses or opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety.
This is the second part of Carissa's story.
I was just in such a state, but I decided this day, it was really hot, stinking summer's day, and I'm sitting outside in my kids' wading pool, and I weighed about 48 kilos, and I'm drinking a bottle of vodka, and I downed a bottle of sleeping pills, and they didn't work. Nothing worked. And I thought I might give this AA another crack. But the problem was I never knew whether it was day or night or what day it was. The only way I could tell was if I turned the TV on and, if sunrise was on, I knew it was the morning. And if the nightly news was on, I knew it was night time. That was the only way I could tell because we didn't have iPhones and stuff back then, so that was the only way I knew what time of the day it was, unless it was, pitch dark and it was night time. So I got in my car and I drove to a women's meeting, and then I continued to go to meetings and I detoxed and I, for the first 3 months I was off and on, like I'd not drink during the week and then I'd drink on the weekends, and I tried different things, and in the end I thought, this is not working, so I just continued to go to AA, and I sobered up in Flinders Street, and I spent my first year probably in Flinders Street going to all of those meetings. And I tell you what, if you can sober up in Flinders Street, you can sober up anywhere back in those days, because it was just full of people that were homeless. The homeless people used to come in there, all the sandwiches, and have cups of tea and then leave again. I was just astounded. Like, I'd listen to these people share and I just think, oh my God, these people are amazing. They know everything, I just wished that I knew what they knew, like what's the secret here? And there was no secret. You just come to meetings. You just do the suggested things. That's all it was. So, I ended up getting sober and it was amazing. And I had 13 years of recovery and it was great. I did great things. I finished off my teaching degree. I ended up becoming a teacher in a really prestigious school. I brought my kids up. I went on camps. I went overseas for the first time ever, and then I ended up going overseas 3 times, bought a house, got engaged. I spent my 30th in bloody rehab, and then I spent my 40th as a surprise engagement party, and it was just amazing. But then a couple of years ago, I stopped going to meetings. I made work my priority. I slowly dropped off. I wasn't ringing people very often. I just wasn't doing the things I should be doing. And one day I was driving home from work and I was having this terrible anxiety attack, and I just thought, if I just have a drink, it'll just take the edge off, and that's it. I'll just have one and I'll be fine. And I did. I went and had this drink. I stopped in at this pub and I had a drink, and that was it. I was gone. And I relapsed, and I relapsed hard for nearly 2 years. And I tell you what, when they say you pick up where you left off, I picked up and I went so hard. It was absolute living hell. And because it was COVID, there was hand sanitizer around, and I was drinking the hand sanitizer. I was drinking anything that had alcohol in it, and I was completely insane. And at this point, suicide became an option. And I tried to take my own life. I took every tablet there was in the cupboard. I even took the dog's tablets because he's got anxiety. Took the dog's tablets for when he goes to get his hair cut and goes to the vet. There were 15 of them in there. I took them. I took every single tablet I could find in the cupboard, and I washed it down with a bottle of freaking aloe vera bloody hand sanitizer. And I went and laid on the bed, and I thought, all right, good night. Thank God, I'm going to die. And then 4 hours later, I freaking woke up and I was not happy. And because I'd ingested so many tablets, freaking had double vision for 2 days. It was awful. Oh my God, I don't know what was in those dog tablets, but bloody hell, I did not feel good. And it wasn't long after that, but the dog had to have a haircut, and my husband said, oh, the tablets, where are those dog tablets? And I said, oh, I don't know. I had to make up an excuse. Oh, I don't know where the dog tablets are. He goes, yeah, we got 15 of them, remember? Ellie and I went and got them not very long ago. I said, oh, I don't know. I said, I cleaned the medicine cupboard out when I came back. I don't know, maybe I accidentally threw them out. He goes, bloody hell. He goes, they cost $150. He goes, you better find them. And I was like, oh, God, I can't tell him that I bloody took them. But it was terrible. I ended up in psychiatric wards. I ended up in lockup wards. From first drink to hospital was generally 7 days. I ended up in DASA about 3 times, and I never thought I'd end up there because I used to go to Joslin all the time, but since I'd built that new big DASA, I used to take the meetings there. I never expected to be a patient there, and the detoxes were horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And then, they found out that I was, unscrewing all the bottles of hand sanitizer off the walls. So whenever I was going into hospital, they were removing all the hand sanitizer off the ward. So I had nothing. Because when I'd go in there, I'd blow, 2 point something, and then 3 hours later, I'd blow 3 point something. That'd be confused. I'd say, Carissa, we can't work out why your blood alcohol level keeps going up. And, did you bring alcohol with you? I'm like, no, they've already checked me, and they didn't realise that I was, hiding this stuff. And it's like, well, you're never going to get better if you keep freaking drinking the alcohols, hand sanitizer. So yeah, it was awful. It was absolutely awful, and I scared a lot of people. But I was lucky that I had some really, really good friends in the fellowship that I'd been around for a long time, and during my years of recovery prior to this relapse, I was one of those people that I always hung out with old timers. I always loved the old timers. I loved talking to them. I love hearing what they had to say. I just love being with them. And, they were the ones that were there. I had visits in the hospital. I had people coming to see me. I had people bringing meetings to me, and I was a mess. And it took me nearly 2 years, and I'm almost 5 months sober now, and I'm doing what I'm told. I'm doing it differently. I'm doing every suggested thing. I'm not just saying, oh yeah, I'm getting down on my knees. I am actually getting down on my knees and praying, and I'm asking for direction, and I'm trying to do the right thing, and I'm going to as many meetings as I can, and I'm doing as much service as I can because, I'm still in early days. I'm in that first year, and, I'm trying to deal with this, putting on a stack of weight in that first year because all you eat is sugar, sugar and caffeine. Well, I've given the caffeine away because I know it just gives me anxiety. So I know that from previous years, but, I've put on a couple of stone, and that's okay because I was quite underweight before. But, I always love it when I hear sayings like, AA is always the last card in the deck, but it's always the ace. There's so many cool little sayings in AA, and I love them. I carry this little book around with me, and I write a lot of them down, and that the old timers say, if you can't remember your last drink, you probably haven't had it yet. And, just little things like that. And I love them because they're funny, but they're also, this is deadly serious. We live with a fatal illness. This is a fatal disease that we live with, and you can't muck around with it. You cannot muck around with it. We cannot rest on our laurels. We cannot for 1 minute think we're normal, because we're not. And I know when I'm not running well that I need to be at a meeting. And my husband knows as well. He says, why aren't you going to, because I pick up a member quite a lot because he doesn't drive at night. He says, well, why aren't you picking him up tonight? I said, he's having a night off. Or he goes, oh, you can still go. I said, no, we're going to do something different tomorrow night. And he gets worried. Well, you still need to go. So I'm really lucky that my partner's really supportive of me being in AA, and I'm lucky that, he hung around. We've been together for 22 years, and, I've given him, 13 and a bit years of sobriety, but the rest of it was not a good time. And the hell that I put my kids through, absolute hell. I terrified them as children, and then I terrified them as adults. But, I caused a lot of wreckage in this last relapse, a lot. And I'm talking about financial, relationships. I'm lucky I didn't lose my teaching license. But I'm really fortunate that because I'm doing all the things, the suggested things, they're slowly coming back. My daughter's speaking to me, from, I saw her Christmas Day, first time I'd seen her for a year, which is a step forward. I've got a job for next year, which is not full-time, but, that's good because, I can be one of those people that gets obsessed about work, and this suits me better. I'm cleaning up some of my debt, and I know it'll take a year to clean that up, but I've got time, because I'm not drinking, so I'm not wasting money on that and ambulances and stuff. So got an ambulance bill to pay off and other stuff, but, that's okay. I didn't lose my license, my driver's license. I should have. I didn't kill anyone. I probably could have. There's a lot of things that I could have done, but, I'm here to tell the story. And, the stats for, alcoholics coming into recovery that actually stay in recovery is about 2%. But I hate to think of what the stats are of people that come into recovery and have a substantial amount of recovery time and then go back out, of what their likelihood of coming back in and staying sober are like, And I want to be that person. I want to be that statistic that stays sober, because I don't ever want to go back to that hell. It's absolute hell. And I know that, in my inner circle, the people that I hang out with, the people that are my closest friends, the ones that I rely on, the ones that rely on me, the ones that were crying when I was nearly dead, the ones that thought that they were going to bury me, are the ones that said, you scared us so much that, you know, I scared one woman so much she started going back to meetings on a daily basis. She's been sober for, you know, over 20 years. And I said, you know what, maybe that bust, you know, maybe that helped a lot of people see how bad it really is, because people said, oh, I couldn't believe that you busted, you know, or you relapsed. And it's like, it can happen to anyone. I've heard of people 40 years picking up a drink. It doesn't matter. The days don't matter. You know, you just have to do anything but drink some days, and it's a good day. If I've done nothing but not take a drink, it's a good day. But I have more good days than bad days now. I know I'm still in that first year, and it's, you know, almost 5 months, but I'm loving life at the moment, you know, because the gifts of recovery are coming back to me. The people I love are in the rooms. The people that never gave up on me are there. They're happy I'm there. You know, they didn't cut me off. They didn't say, we don't want to see you for a year. You know, they don't judge me. They just said, welcome back. Thank God you're here, you know, and that's all we need. That's what alcoholics need. We need to be needed at the end of the day. We need to be loved and needed, and that's what we, you know, that's all we want, you know. And for me, for my recovery, that's what I need. But I also need to be helping another alcoholic. And for me, I love picking up other people that can't get to a meeting and taking them there. And, you know, that's the way I can give back at the moment, because I haven't got enough time up to be of service in other ways in a home group. But if I can pick up a member a couple of times a week that can't drive for whatever reason, that's great for me, because we have a meeting in the car, you know, we have a chat about things, and I don't feel so alone, you know, because, you know, often at meetings you have a talk to someone and you get interrupted, or, you know, come on, we're closing the lights down now, or it's got to go, or you get there early and then there's so many people you want to chat to. But when we're in the car for half an hour and we have that talk, and it's like, you know, you just go that little bit deeper when you're sharing with each other, and it's like, you know, this person's got so much time up, and, you know, I'm right back to the start of my day. It doesn't mean I haven't lost what I learned in all that time, but to hear that we're both exactly the same. We both felt at home in the psych ward. We both feel at home when we're with people that are, you know, mental defects, you know, people that aren't quite right, you know, and that's okay. That is completely okay. And I'm really glad that, you know, I'm not glad I had the relapse, but I sort of am, because it's brought me to a new level of recovery. It's brought me to a level of knowing that this is not something that you muck around with. AA is not a social club. It's not. It's a life support machine. If I don't go there, I will die. And I know that now, since having that relapse. So yeah, thank you for listening to me, and God bless you all. And, you know, please just one day at a time. That's all we have, and that's all I've got. That's all you've got. And together we can just get through this. God bless.
We have local meetings for the full week in the local area. Monday is Gala meeting at 8 o'clock. Tuesday is Elizabeth East at 8 o'clock. Wednesday is Elizabeth East at 8 o'clock. Thursdays, 2 Wells at 8 o'clock. And Fridays, Salisbury at 8 o'clock. There's a meeting at Davron Park at 12 o'clock. And on Sunday, there's a meeting in Salisbury at 7 o'clock. And many other meetings in the area. For details of your local meetings, please phone 1300 22 2222. And once again, if anyone you know is struggling with alcohol issues, please call Alcoholics Anonymous on 1300 22 2222. The website is aaSouthAustralia.org.au.